prices are going down. What I am saying is murder rates. They actually are going down.
Inflation is still
plateauing.
It is decreasing in rate, which is the entire goal.
But
of
are
the
prices
Federal
going
Reserve.
down or not? Just to be clear. No, they're not.
They
going
are down
and
from their sky high rates. Yes.
Actually,
No. Let's move on. Next up for
we were just arguing over combat zones. I don't know where we are this morning.
You're going to argue.
You guys are trying to paint a picture of a country that doesn't exist.
I'm not painting anything. I'm painting. Stop talking. That's what I'm painting.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Black Coffee. I'm your host, and today we're diving into the media's obsession with January 6th, how it's playing out in the current political landscape, and what the people are really thinking about all of this. It's time to cut through the noise, grab your favorite brew, and let's get into it.
Scott, in a political sense, is it how we got here? Is interesting, and you can see the evolution. You can play all the sound bites from the days after when you heard Republicans blaming Donald Trump, some being short of saying he should be impeached, saying he should be held accountable. And 4 years later, we are here. It is a stunning political comeback attributed to how Trump played it afterward, how Democrats played it afterward, or something else?
Well, I think it's some mixture of everything, but to me, the big message is that in the United States, the people decide. And because of the disastrous 4 years that came after Donald Trump, the people decided to return Donald Trump to power. And that's fundamentally what happened. They looked at what happened on January the 6th. They looked at all the things Democrats claimed about Donald Trump, and they also analyzed every single decision that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made, and they delivered Donald Trump a convincing victory 4 years later.
It is tough, though, Scott, because when you say the people decide, that's what people tried to make sure didn't happen on January 6th, was allowing the people to decide.
The machinery turned. It was a terrible...
The lack of acknowledgement of how bad it was in the aftermath.
I mean, I think a great many people have acknowledged it, but also what happened that day. The machinery turned. Joe Biden became the president. He had one of the worst terms of any U.S. president, and then the people scrambled back to Donald Trump. That is the history of what happened.
So we've just passed another anniversary of January 6th, and if you're like me, you're probably tired of the media rehashing the same old narratives. You have outlets like CNN who are all over the coverage, trying to paint Trump as some kind of mastermind. And on the other hand, we have people like Scott Jennings, who's been on CNN actually correcting them on their own airwaves.
Yeah, I think it'll be remembered, but I don't think it's going to be remembered singularly. I think it's going to be remembered in the context of the last 8 years, 4 years of Trump, 4 years of Biden. I mean, the fact is it happened. It was a terrible day. Violence, political violence should never be condoned. And then we lived through 4 years of Biden's presidency, and the American people went scrambling back to Donald Trump. They chose to analyze two presidencies, which included one day and a whole bunch of other policy decisions, and they went back to Trump. The other thing about this day and about this election that I think is noteworthy and actually positive is this. It's not been since 1988 that Democrats have not challenged a Republican win on the floor of the House when trying to count the votes. I've never had an election in my adult professional career in which both sides basically accepted it without too much grumbling. Obviously, 00 and 04, Democrats didn't accept Bush. There were Republicans who didn't accept Obama. We know Democrats still think Russia stole the election in 2016. We know what happened in 2020. This time around, it seems to me that most people have basically accepted the results of the election. Also, the Electoral Reform Count Act passed in 2022, clarifying that the vice president only has ministerial duty, so that's going to go off without a hitch today. It feels like maybe we've gotten off the slippery slope of one side or the other not accepting the outcome of an election. So in its totality over the last quarter century, I tend to think that's a good thing.
I think start.
Well, I was just going to say, look, I get it, and I agree that in the long run, I think that the days of, January 6 fights are probably going to be over. We did a great thing with the Electoral Count Act reform, but we have to be very careful. We can't put Democrats, and I was against them doing it when they did it, obviously, against Democrats opposing the election. We can't put that on the same level what happened on January 6th.
The media, especially establishment media, has been pushing a solemn, fear-mongering narrative about the events of January 6th. They want you to believe it was the worst day in American history and that Donald Trump is solely responsible. They seem to want total agreement, not allowing any nuance or differing opinions. But here's the thing, are regular Americans really buying this? Are they as fixated on January 6th as these pretend journalists want them to be? The sources suggest that maybe not. Many people are tired of the constant propaganda being pushed by dishonest media figures. It's interesting to see how the narrative has evolved. In the days following January 6th, even some Republicans were criticizing Trump and calling for him to be held accountable, with some even suggesting impeachment. Fast forward for years and Donald Trump is back in power, which makes one wonder, what really happened here?
Bringing a sense of serenity here, and of course, 4 years ago, it was anything but serene. Never mind the feel of the place, but one of the many differences was there was a vice president who was getting pressured to overturn the will of the people. This time, we are going to see a vice president who herself was on the ballot to have the highest office in the land, and she's going to have to be part of the ceremony, oversee the ceremony that is constitutional, that makes her loss certified. And I was in the Capitol, in the House chamber 4 years ago when Al Gore had to do, 24 years ago when he had to do that very thing. And I will tell you that I was told that Al Gore and Kamala Harris have spoken since the election. We don't know what they spoke about, but you can only imagine they have a lot in common.
Now, let's talk about the political games being played. You've got folks like Dana Bash on CNN, using January 6th to prop up Kamala Harris. She's even compared Harris to Al Gore, portraying both of them, these serene figures forced to oversee the certification of their own losses. And speaking of Al Gore, the source mentions that he and Kamala Harris have even spoken since the election. You can only imagine what they spoke about considering they have a lot in common. Scott Jennings called out CNN for underplaying the fact that Democrats have also challenged Republican wins. He even pointed out how the media wants to focus solely on Republican challenges. We even have this narrative that the people tried to make sure that the people did not decide on January 6th. It's worth noting that, prior to this election, there's been a history of both sides challenging election results. Democrats didn't fully accept Bush's win, Republicans didn't fully accept Obama's win, and many Democrats still think that Russia stole the 2016 election. However, it's been since 1988 that Democrats have not challenged a Republican win, but this time, it seems most people have accepted the results. The Electoral Reform Count Act, passed in 2022, clarified that the vice president only has a ministerial duty. This probably helped to avoid any challenges on this election. It seems that we might be finally moving away from the pattern of one side not accepting election results. And with all this, some might think we have put the January 6th fights behind us. A slippery slope? We need to be careful, though, not to equate Democrats opposing elections with the events of January 6th, but according to the sources, that's what Scott did, undermining CNN's narrative. So, what's the takeaway here? First, it's clear that the media's narrative doesn't always reflect the reality or what most Americans care about. Second, the people have spoken twice and their voices matter. Third, there is a long history of election challenges from both parties. It's not just a one-sided issue. It's up to us, the viewers, to see through the media games and make our own informed decisions. What do you think? Are we over the January 6th obsession, or is the media going to keep pushing the same old story? Let me know in the comments below. Host, thanks for tuning in to Black Coffee. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay informed and stay caffeinated.